All right, let's get started. Call to order. The what?
I'm just playing with you.
Call to order the New Kent County Board of Supervisors, July 28th, work session order. Ms. Watkins, will you call the roll?
Mr. Evelyn?
Here.
Mr. Tiller? Ms. Page?
Here.
Mr. Steers?
Here.
And Mr. Lockwood?
Here.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here this morning. Item 1, the presentation is going to be canceled today on the Chickahominy watershed. We'll go to item 2, Coax Broadband Expansion Plan. Susan Buck, come on up. Morning.
Hi, good morning.
That's it.
Chairman Evelyn and members of the board, thank you so much for having me here this morning. It's nice to see you all again, and I certainly appreciate your time today. This one? Better? Okay, great. Today I'm looking forward to sharing with you some opportunities for partnership that will result in connectivity for unserved residents of New Kent County. But before I get into project details, I want to start with some background information about Coax Communications. So we will click through. Back in 1898, our founder, James M. Coax, purchased the Dayton Evening News, and that was the start of what is now Coax Enterprises, a privately held communications, media, and automotive services company with revenues of nearly $15 billion and more than 50,000 employees worldwide. I mention this because the Coax family is committed to continuing Mr. Cox's legacy, investing in the communities where we do business, where our employees live and work, and New Kent is no exception. For more than 20 years, Coax has been investing in New Kent County, providing connectivity for residents and businesses, and we wanted to let you know that we're here, we're staying here, and we certainly want to see the county prosper. This is a visual snapshot of our nationwide investment and network resiliency. What I'd like to point out here is that the Coax family has earmarked $10 billion in investment in our nationwide network over the next 5 years. And here in Virginia, we're going to see about $2.2 billion of that $10 billion. The investment strategy is getting the network ready now for the demand our network will see in the very near future as the Internet of Things continues to grow and be more of a norm for everyday functions. While residential customers can get speeds up to 1 gig in their homes now, we anticipate the need will grow tenfold, and so the enhancements we're working on now are going to support that 10 gig residential deployment when the time comes for that. And of course, today our Coax Business commercial customers can already get that kind of speed, and some can even get up to 100 gig if they want it, but not many businesses need that type of speed, but if they need it, we have it available. This map illustrates our national fiber backbone, and what I like to point out here is that our nationwide network is made up of 35,000 miles of fiber and 180,000 miles of hybrid fiber coax. And hybrid fiber coax is the typical connection from our fiber-fed nodes to individual homes. And of course, we all know that all of this fiber in the ground doesn't mean anything unless it's connected to the internet, so you'll see that we are connected up through Ashburn and other peering sites throughout the country. Additionally, we also have a line into the transatlantic cables that land in Virginia Beach, so we have the ability to offer that connectivity to our commercial customers should they need that low latency connection to do business overseas. And I mentioned our hybrid fiber coax configuration, and oftentimes we get asked about our configuration, and this here is an illustration of how individual homes are connected to our network. The hybrid fiber coax model is a traditional method of delivering high-speed internet to the home. This method is used because it tends to be the most economic way to reach a large number of homes. How it works is fiber feeds our nodes, and then we use coax to carry the signal to the home. Now, there are some instances where a fiber to the home build makes more sense, and we do occasionally complete fiber to the home builds, but that's something that our engineers figure out, and they'll decide what's the best route of delivery for that service. And regardless of how the signal is delivered, all of our customers have the same options for service with the ability to get that 1 gig speed I mentioned. All right. As we go through the next several slides, On proposed project areas, please keep in mind that New Kent County is a prime candidate for use of the American Rescue Plan Act funding. New Kent County has received federal funding, as you know, for the specific purpose of investing in broadband infrastructure to reach the unserved. These funds are being distributed by the federal government because they realize the private sector taking on broadband expansion on their own is simply cost prohibitive, and Coax is not alone in this. New Kent County has been presented with an opportunity to reach unserved residents with the financial support of the federal government. Those funds, combined with initial and long-term ongoing investments from Coax, can support projects that can start as soon as tomorrow to help get residents connected. This map here, at the end of 2019, early 2020, our engineers took a look at where we are not in New Kent County, and we've been taking a look at these 22 areas and have identified them based on the location of our existing fiber network. These were areas chosen on proximity to that network and really chosen because this is the most cost-effective way to get started to reach those unserved homes. This by no means is an exhaustive list of all residences that need connectivity. However, they are the ones that could be completed the quickest and for the least amount of investment. The great thing about this list is that we have the option of tackling it in several different ways. To build out the approximately 90 miles of new network to reach more than 1,200 unserved homes would cost about $7 million. That's if we wanted to knock it all out at once. However, knowing there was an opportunity to apply for some state funding to support broadband expansion to unserved areas, we worked with the county to apply for a Virginia Telecommunications Initiative grant for a handful of the areas listed last year. This is a recap of last year's grant application. We targeted about 750 homes in the county, and we broke it down into 4 separate areas. And although we weren't successful in receiving funding support, there are future opportunities for investment or to build out these areas similar to what we are doing in Roanoke. Last year we also applied for a grant in Roanoke, and we weren't successful in getting state funding for that. But we have gotten commitment from the county and have started on building out that project regardless of getting that state funding. I also want to reiterate here that the costs indicated on the slides are for initial build only, and Coax of course, is going to own, operate, maintain, and upgrade the network at its own expense for the life of the network, regardless of our service take rate. It's not advancing.
The arrow needs to be up there.
Oh, I think he's trying to do it. There we go. So I took the liberty of breaking down the VATI project even further to focus on some of the smaller areas. So the thought here is perhaps we could use this as a pilot project for ARPA or any other CARES Act dollars that you may have that need to be expended on broadband to connect homes. This is a low-cost option that can be a case study for future investments and partnership opportunity with Coax outside of the VATI grant process.
How far is your line from Auburn Hills, do you know?
I believe I have a map on the next slide. Yes. This map shows the proposed build route for the Autumn Hills Henpeck area, and you'll see that we would tie in at the Kingsfield subdivision up at the top of the slide, build down Henpeck to reach the homes on Autumn Hills. By backfeeding from Autumn Hills to Mimosa Lane and Henpeck, we can pick up an additional 11 homes for a total of 24 homes passed for this project area. The network will pass it, so those are all, the cost is included even if it's a drop that's beyond our normal 250 feet. The costs that we've put together for all of these projects include those long drops if our network is going down the main road and then it needs to get to a house that's far down a driveway.
So it includes connection to the home?
Yes, sir.
Whichever homes are passed, people want to connect?
Yes, sir.
No,
No, we've included the cost to reach even if they're beyond that 250 feet.
is there a limit on the beyond?
No, it's just, it depends on, there's, based on how far we need to go would determine whether we need another piece of equipment just for the integrity of the signal. So if it's a mile down a road off the main road, we probably would have to put another, I'm not an engineer, another piece of equipment to kind of connect the dots to get to the house.
No additional cost to the people being connected?
Right, all of that is included, and I've asked the engineers when they are doing this to make sure that that all of the costs were included. And of course, these are all virtual estimates. As we get out and we walk out the routes, the cost may change a little bit, but for the most part, this is in good faith their best estimate to reach them without having to ask the homeowner for any additional funds. In addition to the Henpeck Autumn Hills area, I also asked our engineers to take a look at a couple other smaller projects. Again, thinking about some of the dollars that have been expended by the county on some other projects, like a broadband project that you all worked on with another provider. So I was thinking, well, if we could take that same amount of money and put it into projects that would connect homes, this is what that would look like. So these two areas that our engineers put together are highlighted on the slide, which would cost about $80,000 or be an $80,000 investment from the county to complete as well.
Those would be $80,000 each project.
Approximately, yes. Mm-hmm. And finally, an area that we've seen several requests for is the Elysium Drive area. And in order to build to this neighborhood, we're looking at an investment of approximately $146,000 from the county, in addition to the $138,000 Coax would make for that initial investment in that build. And because of the reasons the engineers tell me, the Elysium Drive project would be a fiber to the home build, with a fiber tie-in point situated at the corner of New Kent Highway and Cooks Mill Road, and would take at least 6 months to complete because of that fiber to the home build. I'd like to end the presentation today with a few takeaways. I'd like to reiterate that New Kent County has an outstanding opportunity to dedicate federal funds through the American Rescue Plan Act to take immediate action to get unserved residents connected to the internet, and we can make that happen sooner than later. All homes and lots passed in any of these projects or future projects will have access to the same speeds any other Cox customer in Virginia has access to, which is our GigaBlast product, and they will benefit from any network enhancements or upgrades. And as we look to the future of bringing 10 gig to the home, any Cox customer will have access to those speeds with no additional investment needed or requested from the county. Also, for residents who have a K-12 student in the home and may be experiencing financial hardship, we have the Connect to Compete program, which is our $9.95 per month in-home internet with Wi-Fi with download speeds of 50 megabits per second for qualifying families. There's also an opportunity to partner with Cox on an internet subsidy program if that's something you all are interested in. We could work together on New Kent's own version of the emergency broadband benefit, which is the federal program that provided that $50 per month subsidy to help cover the cost of internet for qualifying families. We're also really excited to continue to work with you and partner, brainstorm, think outside the box, and looking at new ways on how we can partner to best serve your residents. We do have fiber in the ground right now, and so we can start the process as soon as tomorrow to start building out to some of these neighborhoods. I just appreciate your consideration, appreciate your time today, and thank you for your consideration of working together to reach families.
Thank you. I'm sure we have some comments. Ms. Lockwood?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking at your slide there with the Connect to Compete, and it's a low-cost thing, $9.95 a month, and the speeds are 50 and 3.
Yes, sir.
That's hardly the ability to compete. I mean, you can't do much of anything. You couldn't do home school. You couldn't do Zoom meetings at that speed. I mean, how are kids going to connect it? I mean, if you don't have 100, you're like in the Stone Ages now. So for 50 and 3, it's not even a minimum standard. I mean, minimum standard now for high-speed internet is 120. And
so broadband speeds are defined as 25 over 3, and so actually the Connect to Compete program was at 25 over 3 when COVID started, and then the company bumped it up to 50, and 50 is sufficient for Zoom calls, for in-home learning, for telemedicine. The download speed, moving up to 50 megabits per second, really was an effort to allow more than one student to do the kind of work they were doing at the same time. I know there has been a lot of talk about symmetrical speeds and needing that 100 over 100, but what we see is that even, at least for Coax on our usage side, a lot of the usage is on the download stream and not so much on the upload stream. So symmetrical speeds has kind of been a buzzword lately in the broadband space, but if you look at our usage, it makes more sense for us to focus on the download than focusing on that upload speed in terms of where we're focusing our bandwidth.
I would respectfully disagree, because if one thing COVID has shown us, upload speed is critical, especially for communication, telemedicine, all those types of things that people have encountered in the last year and a half or so. The demand for upload speed has increased significantly faster than the demand for download speed. And that's a trend that everybody says is going to continue in the future. So I have a lot of concerns about anything connected to Coax. We've spent an awful lot of money as a county. Every recommendation that we've received, every consultant that we've hired, our own broadband advisory committee was the recommendation has been for fiber to the home. I think we've come to the conclusion that that's the way we need to go. And I saw one of your proposals was fiber to the home.
Yes, sir.
I would say that, a realistic view would be any proposal should be fiber to the home.
And we can certainly look at, I can work with our engineers to see what that would look like. Certainly that would be, make some changes to the costs to reach the homes, but if that's something that the county would like to see to compare from the fiber fed node to the coax to the home scenario to a fiber to the home, I can certainly go back to them and see what that looks like.
Because as you know, we have been talking to other companies
Yes, sir.
that have provided quotes and all that for fiber to the home. So I think anything less than that would be a compromise that the investment doesn't justify. So I would say that any proposal, and I'm speaking for myself, not for the board, but any proposal that I would consider would have to be fiber to the home. So
Thank you for that
that's it.
feedback. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Page?
Good morning again. Thank you for being here. My concern is that a year and a half, 2 years ago, I sat down with you and Mr. Stark. We talked about a plan for New Kent.
I was there. I was going to bring that up.
I sent several emails. I haven't gotten the plan, and I hope that what you showed me this morning isn't the plan. But I mean, I think that I like being on the offense, and it's very difficult when you're on the defense. And for me, it's been almost 2 years that I asked for a plan of how this county looks. I mean, it's no secret that we've talked to other providers, and so what we got this morning, I have to be in agreement with Mr. Lockwood. If we're going to compare, we need to compare apples to apples, and this doesn't compare it. I guess by you continually saying that New Kent is going to be getting federal funds, that you have an idea of how much we're going to get for broadband services. I don't know the number of what we're going to be getting, but I just feel as though even though we appreciate it, those that have it, I guess a lot of them appreciate having your service, but for me, it doesn't provide what we need as a county. And I think that if Cox was, and if Cox is sensitive to the needs of this county, that Cox has invested so much money and into that by now, and throughout this last contract, then you all will certainly know the needs of this county. And so, I mean, I got back a proposal, estimate yesterday of $12,000, $13,000. It seems like everybody that has a need in this county they have 7,500, a $15,000 need. I mean, what good is $9.95 and you don't have the $13,000 you need to even get it to your house so you even qualify? If you qualify to get it to your house, $9.95 a month, what is that? That's a drop in the bucket. And you know, everybody knows that with the growth of this county and the communities that we have growth in, it becomes more than just going down the road and saying, okay, so you're going to have to pay this and you're going to have to pay this. We're getting people into this county that work jobs, and it's going to be all over the United States that people are going to be working from home. Right. And so to bring us a plan this morning, and we're only covering 700, 1,200 homes, that doesn't even touch what we need. It doesn't even touch what we need. And so being appreciative that we have some kind of internet service, and being far more sensitive than all of the emails, and I can tell you I received 36, all of the emails that I've received over the past month, we need a different type of presentation. And so, I mean, I can say I enjoy talking to you and Barrett, all I want to say, but what I needed, I still haven't received it. And for that, I am truly disappointed. I'm disappointed that I'm talking to people that have real needs, and they can't have what they need for their children. And I think that with the investment, whatever your total investment you've made in New Kent County, that's fine. And it's easy to do that when you are basically the only provider in the county. But with that being said, that's not what we need in the county. We need a whole lot more than that. And if Coax isn't willing to step up and do a lot more than that, then I don't know. I'm frustrated. I'll put it like that.
Sure. And if I may, Supervisor Page, you know, as I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, Coax isn't alone in this. The governor's broadband team has estimated that there's about 250,000 residents in Virginia that don't have connectivity for this very reason, that it's just cost prohibitive to get to these homes that are beyond the existing network, that are in the more rural parts of the counties and the localities that are served. So that's why even the federal government is stepping in and saying, hey, here's some money for infrastructure builds. Additionally, the governor has requested $700 million to be put into the VADI grant funds. You know, with VADI, of course, it's a competition. So we are competing against other private providers to get some of that grant money to help build out. But at the end of the day, it comes down to economics, and we certainly we will invest in this. We're just looking for some support to help us offset the high cost of the initial build. Down the road, we will certainly do everything that we would do for any other network that we build in terms of investing in upgrades and servicing the network and working with our customers. We take all of that on as an expense down the road. But I do understand the frustration. I know we have been talking for quite some time. We pulled together those 22 areas as a starting off point to see where we could go with that. But from a getting started standpoint, I feel like there's been a lot of conversations, and we've gone back and forth on a lot of these locations where people have been requesting connectivity, but we just haven't had any movement on it from a funding perspective.
And so, since 2015, I don't know one VADI grant that we've been awarded. And I looked at the process, especially last year, and I'm gonna tell you, with I guess his support from Coax, all I said was a bunch of emails going back and forth, and we got our county administrative staff applying for a grant. I mean, we have a great county administrative staff. Now, don't get me wrong, but they're not here to know the terms and everything that it takes to apply for a VADI grant. And so all I saw was a ton of emails going back and forth. I didn't see the support that we needed, even to apply for some of these grants. And with everything that's going on with these federal dollars, right now we're just hoping we're going to get some money. And even if we get it through the VATI, that's no hope for me because we've never gotten a VATI grant, never that I know of.
Yeah, it's unfortunate with the VATI grants. If you look at the trend, a lot of the awards were west of 64, right, or west of 95, and they're knocking out these larger areas where there's a higher concentration, the very rural areas of the state. And so we've been equally as frustrated because we've applied in several localities throughout our service footprint and have not been awarded VATI grants. And you know, I work directly with Mr. Hathaway on those VATI grants. We provide all of the mapping, the speeds. Our engineers map out the plan. We help write the narrative to help tell the story as to why New Kent would be a great candidate for those VATI funds. And so it is a collaborative effort between the county and Coax. The county does apply with a private partner, so it is an application that has to come from the county. The county has to submit it through the system, but we certainly work together on making sure that all of the information that Mr. Hathaway needs is provided to be able to support that grant. Unfortunately, when the scores come in for VATI and there's other localities that are serving, 3,000 homes, it doesn't quite compare when we put an application in for 750. So they're looking to knock out as many as they can. The governor certainly has his goals in place for how many homes he wants to connect. He wants to get to universal coverage. So they are knocking out those larger areas first, which has been unfortunate for us because we do spend a lot of time and resources pulling together those maps and those plans and submitting those applications in hopes of getting some funding.
So you don't think we had 3,000 homes that are without service? Is that why we don't apply for 3? Because I see 1,200, 700, 800. And if we know that's the expectation of the governor, then I know we got 3,000 homes in New Kent without internet.
Right. So we would just need to work together on identifying those 3,000 homes and put together a grant for those 3,000 homes. In the past, we've focused on certain areas. We focused on priority areas that were identified by the county, and looking at the White House, Crumps Mill, that area up in the northwestern corner of the county. So a lot of that has been driven by where the county has asked us to focus our efforts for VATI.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to echo a little bit of what Ms. Page said real quick. I was in that meeting almost 2 years ago, and if we would have had that project or that plan, we could have used some of those monies for the CARES Act money if you all had gotten that plan done.
We did complete a CARES Act project with you all. It was a small one. It was about $33,000, but we were able to reach a small area.
Yeah, like 5 houses or something, right?
Right.
But I'm saying we had that whole. Y'all were going to put a whole plan like you did for Gloucester together at that meeting when the Gloucester applied. That's what we were supposed to get.
Right. So when we met, we brought the map for the 22 areas, and you all said, yes, this is where we want to focus. So we put together a plan, and that's when I mentioned earlier the $7 million. That was that plan. We came back and said, if you want to build out these 22 areas, it's going to cost $7 million with about a $5 million commitment from the county.
I don't remember that.
That's not what I thought.
But
we were asking for either.
That particular plan was the 750 some homes.
That's the 1,200.
I think the expectation from that earlier meeting, just adding as well, is that we were going to receive.
Somebody needs to
Good.
We were going to receive a plan that covered the entire county.
Which we did not get. It covered a portion of the county, but not the entire county.
And I understand, and I appreciate you. I actually have a very underserved, probably along with Mr. Lockwood, the two underserved districts in the county, and I understand it's a money-making business. Y'all have to make money. I understand your private business, but I just got one example of the White House Farms here I'd like to share with the board. And you said you're committed to working with us. So, you didn't show this example. I know you have it, but there is no internet in this area. I mean, and I know that because I don't live there, but I live very close, and I don't have it internet. But there's 62 homes right on the side of the road, and I don't know, and right from 249. And I don't understand. I mean, to me, that meets your mile and 25 homes. And if you want to work with us, it looks like you would at least try to connect, some areas like this in the county. We have other examples. This is just one quick example I'd like to show you. We've been asking for that for a long time. I mean, I just think that's a prime example of the 25 homes within a mile that you all should run to. And I know you would get
25 homes on the same side of the road, because I fell into that pit.
It is a linear mile, but this certainly, I mean, just from the visual that I'm looking at, again, I'm not an engineer, but I'm happy to take this example to our engineering team.
But I know what will happen is it's going to come back with nothing. But that's the frustrating part on our end. When you have examples like this with all these underserved people call and upset, and they can't. There's no. If somebody sells right now and they have Verizon and they go back, Verizon will not connect to them, so they have to use dial-up. That's how dire the situation is in this area. Yeah, nobody else can connect in this subdivision if they build. So
unless they drop off somebody.
Unless somebody drops off, but they're so I get phone calls, emails all the time. People extremely frustrated, kids in school. I mean, most of these are first-time home buyers with young kids in school and stuff, and they're lost.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and if I can just interject too, a little bit of my frustration with these small projects is, we're picking the ones that right now are kind of the easiest to connect in unserved areas. And this is a good example, here's 62 homes that we can connect with, a run down the road. Every time we do that, we make it harder and harder and harder for those outlier areas to get connected. Because we get to the point where we're cherry picking all the fairly easy ones. And it doesn't matter if it's Coax or if we decide to partner with somebody else. Every time we do one of these little projects, we're taking take rate off the table for the next program. So, we're kind of shooting ourselves in our foot doing these little projects that cost still millions of dollars. And the next time we want to build out to an area that's even farther out, the cost gets even crazier per home. So to me, it's a case of we need a fix for the county. We don't need a fix for this pocket or my neighborhood, or we need a fix for the county. So if I were in your shoes, my proposal would be, here's a build out of fiber to the home for the county, because that's the only real proposal that I'll accept. So I think that's really what we need to be looking at, is instead of cherry picking these little projects that we might make a few voters happy,
Sure.
We're not doing anything to resolve the issue in the overall county. Right. And we're making it even harder down the road to fix the whole county.
Right, and I appreciate that feedback, and I would like to say that, as we are getting to these smaller areas, and I broke it down just so maybe the cost would be more digestible, to start getting moving on some of them and just to start connecting people. And as you're building out to these areas, you're extending the network, and it's kind of like a game of, I don't know, not to oversimplify, but connect the dots, right? So if we're getting out to those areas, we are building network down, we're getting to a node, we're taking the node and getting to other homes. So as we build out, it does make it less expensive to reach some of the more outlying areas because we're building along the way. But connect the dots is really the best analogy I have for that one.
Yeah, but that only helps if you're building fiber out to those areas.
Because
at some point your node maxes out, and going
right.
beyond that isn't going to connect anybody without
right.
another fiber.
It will be fiber to the node. That's the configuration we use. So the New Kent County has fiber in the ground, on the air, connecting the nodes, but then from the node to the home is where that HFC connection is right now.
All right, anybody else? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time this morning.
Yes, ma'am. Next item, New Kent County Board of Road Reviewers Charter. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Before you, you have Resolution R-16-21, which restructures and adopts a charter for the existing New Kent County Board of Road Viewers. As you know, we currently have the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. With that, we have received, as far as our local share, our balance is $1,629,741 available for local transportation dollars. The Central Virginia Transportation Authority has been working very busy. They've been very busy at developing guidelines and a process for the use of these fundings. And I believe that they're getting close to having a process in place, mainly focusing on the regional pot of money that will be available for regional transportation projects, but definitely that will be a guide for us to use as we move forward with local funding, local funded projects as well. One process that we would like to put in place as we have accumulated a significant amount of money and we can proceed with moving forward with transportation projects is a public process that would involve a public board charged with working with staff to develop an annual work program. That would be a recommendation that would come before you annually to be adopted and be approved, and basically that is the work program for projects using, annual work program for projects using Central Virginia Transportation Authority funding. We have two existing county commissions or committees that have been approved by the board that deal with transportation. One is the Board of Road Viewers. The Board of Road Viewers, that is a required board that we have to have in order to get secondary 6-year road funding funds, which currently we get roughly $60,000 a year, not a whole lot to move forward projects. Therefore, this board has been pretty inactive and has not met in a very long time. And we also have the Transportation Safety Commission. That's, I believe, a 19-member board of citizens and staff that meet quarterly, I believe, or bi-monthly, quarterly, that specifically look at transportation safety issues within the county. One option that I've brought before you today is to adopt a charter for the Board of Road Viewers and task them with working with staff to develop an annual work program along with their current obligation of a secondary 6-year plan for the county. This would require a total restructure of the Transportation Committee. Right now, the Board of Road Viewers serve 1-year terms. Transportation projects, as you know, can last several years, and that's not uncommon, or longer. I do believe their tenure should be longer to kind of see projects through and have more involvement in projects. And I think they should have staggered terms as well to have some continuity of current projects that are involved. In the charter, under the membership section, you'll see that I'm proposing staggered terms and a reappointment of all members. And the terms will be staggered based upon which district they live in. I'm also proposing that we add 2 at-large members to increase that board from 5 to 7 members, and they're included in the staggering schedule as well. Their main responsibility, as you look at the duties of this section, is to work with staff, and I'll talk about staffing in the next agenda item, but it is to develop an annual work plan, as I've mentioned, for CVTA projects and for secondary 6-year program funding. It's pretty simple. Those are the 2 tasks for the Board of Road Viewers. They sound small, but it's really a lot involved in that. Because one thing that they'll be doing early on, I would like to task them of developing a scoring process for potential projects. As projects are discussed, I'd like for some uniform measure to rank all projects in order of priority, which would go into the annual work plan that would come before you.
Anybody have any questions, Ms. Hathaway? Ms. Steers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Hathaway, why task the road reviewers instead of the Transportation Safety Commission?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, this is currently an inactive board, and it gives them an opportunity to meet more regularly. And just having a charter really defines their purpose, which I think is needed as well. The second item is, the Transportation Safety Committee deals primarily with transport safety issues. I imagine probably 80% of projects that would be considered by CVTA would be safety related. But not all projects would have to be safety related. There could be an economic development project potential. There's land that we want to assist with the development of. We might want to encourage development by building a road into that property to establish a business park. That's not really a safety-related project that I believe the Transportation Safety Committee would be focused on. But again, the majority of the projects I anticipate would be safety-related. So that is definitely an option if we wanted to task the Transportation Safety Committee.
Well, there's nobody in this county that knows the roads better than the sheriff and the fire chief, and they serve on the Transportation Safety Commission. And like you stated earlier, we meet quarterly, and there's projects we've been working on for several years. And I'm wondering if it'd be better to have a committee formed from the Transportation Safety Commission rather than the road reviewers. To be quite honest with you, I don't even know who's on there. Do any of you even know who's on the road reviewers? I think
Mine
I
is
know
excellent. I mean, Sharon Oakley has fed me a ton of information when we've had projects.
And at least this way that there would be some input from the sheriff and the fire chief also.
Well, the sheriff and the fire chief, as well as VDOT, who also sits on the Transportation Safety Committee, they would need to be, and I definitely envision they would be involved in the CVTA process to develop an annual work plan, whether or not it's the Transportation Safety Committee or if it's the Board of Road Viewers. That process that's established would have to include them. And VDOT is definitely going to have to be a very close partner with us as well, because we don't have engineers on staff, and would propose that we start hiring a bunch of engineers right now. It's my hope that our projects that we develop, they could be managed and constructed by VDOT. We would just fund them.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Mr. Sears, you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think I heard that the Board of Road Viewers is a required board for the county.
There's language.
So, with that being said, I see in this charter where it says regular meetings of the committee shall be held as needed at time and place determined. I think that if any of us know the full scope of what's going on with the Virginia Transportation Authority, that it is just celebrating its first anniversary. Just still, as our Assistant County Attorney knows, still doing policies and procedures and governance, and I know that Justin and Kelly have been a part of both of them, but this committee, and I don't believe in the word a powerful committee, but this committee will have to be a committee that goes beyond the fire chief, beyond the sheriff's department, but a committee that would absolutely work with those other departments, as well as the Safety Transportation Committee, because when decisions are being made and decisions are being graded, then it becomes the input of and consideration of everything, to include safety. And even with the Safety Committee, there are certain projects that I absolutely believe that Ms. LeDuc should be involved in, because we do have other avenues of funding and grant funding that we could be looking at for some of these projects. And so, and it needs to be a committee that's willing to come to meetings, and a committee that's a very strong committee that's willing to be very honest, to do the work. I mean, we have to appoint people that are willing to do the work, because even to get the road viewers where we need them, and to understand their full requirements and duties and responsibilities, they have to absolutely have a commitment to not just what their personal needs are, or not just to what our individual district needs are, but to see our county, and to be open-minded enough to see our counties as a whole, and still represent our individual districts. And so for me, since I touch every district, whatever they do, I'm cool with it, because it's still going to affect me. But it is this committee will be very critical because of the amount of funding that will be coming into this county. And we just can't have a pocket of money and we say, okay, well, we got money for this, so let's do this. Because we still have roads that are VDOT maintained, and they are a responsibility of VDOT, not funding from Central Virginia Transportation Authority. And so the quick answer that I have also addressed with the Secretary of Transportation's office is the language that has been going out from VDOT that we have CVTA money. And CVTA money is for county projects, and we need a board to prioritize and to hold us guns on what our priorities are, because we know that the 60-year secondary plan, we know what that consists of and how long it takes us to get projects done. This project will enable us to increase our funding to help get some of those 6-year secondary road plans. And so I know it sounds like I'm just going on, but it will become it is a very much needed committee that has laid dormant for many years. And so now it will become a very active committee. And so I just ask that as we look at appointments for this committee and the ongoing, and it's going to be ongoing changes, because CVTA and legislation is still making changes to this board, to this authority. So it's not just Central Virginia making changes, but even last year, legislation made changes giving the Port of Virginia a seat at the table. And so it's those kind of things that we have to report back to them, and we have to rally around to make sure that New Kent gets its share of the pot, and that we are using it, and we are using it according to the standards that are handed down to us. So it's not us making standards, it's standards that's going to be that's going to be passed down to how we use this funding. And that's all I know about it right now in the short version.
I'd just like to add one thing too. With the available funding that we have right now, it has well exceeded the projections from the study that was done when the bill was considered. This $1.6 million that I've mentioned is only what was collected during the last fiscal year, and that didn't start till October. So we're very happy with this revenue. The projections that was done during the House study anticipated New Kent receiving $1.2 million annually. So we're well ahead of that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And that statement, Mr. Hathaway, is kind of to piggyback what Ms. Page said, is kind of indicative of how critical it is that we select the right people to be on this committee, because they are going to be directing us, at least advising how we spend a significant amount of money that we've never had in the county for projects that we've always relied on VDOT to sort of get done.
But the final decision will be made by the Board of Supervisors, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, this is an advisory committee, and I think with that kind of money coming in, we need to, as a board, select the right people to represent that board so that the decisions being made are really, studied well and informed decisions to make sure that we're putting and getting the best bang for our buck. Because it sounds like a lot of money, and it is compared to what we've had in the past, but when you start doing stuff on the road, it goes away very quickly. So, we're going to be dealing with short-term and long-term plans that need to be adopted and setting the criteria on how we do that. So I think, just as a board, it's going to be critical for us to be picking the right people to take this seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lockwood. I would totally agree with that statement wholeheartedly. I guess my concern is when they get around the table and Ms. Steer's district, so they're looking at Kentwood Trail and Mr. Tiller's district, Henpeck Road, and you got these 7 members and maybe 2 of them are from one district, and, so they get some pressure on them. I agree we have to have the right people on there, but what does the board think about having some non-voting members on there, kind of what Mr. Steers talked about, the sheriff, the EDA, fire, and the planning director, just so those people can ask those questions about safety and EDA issues, and, so they could get, they're the people that are working it every day, they know what's going on, and they wouldn't be voting members, but that board could, they could ask them questions and concerns.
Mayor?
Yeah.
So I agree. I do believe that, and just like I said, that the transportation safety, i.e. fire, the sheriff's department, I do think that when a list is compiled, I do think that not only should the road viewers be a part of that, but I do think that those departments also would be a part of the review process. So we would have a review process that would go out to look at that, because then we will need planning to come in as well to make sure that the projects that we have are indeed projects that CVTA says that we can do, because we are still under their governance for the spending of some of this funding to a certain degree.
Yes, and I've always anticipated that those parties would be part of this process and be at the table. I think it's a good idea to actually write that into the charter, include them as an ex officio member. We do have planning included, as far as planning would provide staff support to the Board of Road Viewers, but the sheriff, I think the member of an EDA member
or the EDA director.
EDA director.
Then you have that continuity with planning director, the EDA director, the sheriff, and fire chief.
Yep.
I mean, I don't. That's just a suggestion. So,
And what do you think about? I also envision VDOT at the table too, because ultimately we're going to be leaning on them to manage some of these projects that we select.
However, I don't think, and I could be, the last I heard, I don't think that we would have to, even if they're road projects, I don't think that we have to have them per se do the work. I think that some of the work can be contracted out. It might just have to go through the VDOT list of contractors. I'm quite sure I'm right on that. I can find out. But just like I said, for all of us to know that, and even at this level, to figure out how we're going to establish this, and I'm going to tell you, I'm at meetings every week and sometimes twice a week about this. The whole CBTA and all of the localities are still trying to do the same thing, is to figure out how this is going to really work. And so they have our committees, advisory committees, nominate, all this kind of stuff. They set up governance committees, and they're still trying to put it together. So, I would think that if we had this group of appointees, and then we would have maybe like when they get their projects, we would have a review, a group of people to review it, i.e., and then we would have a group of, and that group would be a group that wouldn't necessarily, i.e., the sheriff's department, fire department, EDA, they're not required to be at every meeting, but they're more of the advisory, and absolutely could be at the meeting. That would be their choice. But I do know that they're gonna need the advice and the legal advice, as well as the experience. So yeah, I agree, Mr.
And one other question that I have: would you like a board member to sit on? And there's various boards that there's a board representative on.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? They would be persuasive of their own district?
Well, and that's a couple things, including VDOT. I think VDOT should come in after we've made the decisions about what projects, because we are going to need their input. We're going to need their approval on some things. But my concern and my concern about this whole pot of money is that VDOT views it as a solution to their problems, and that's not what we're not here to spend this money to do the things that VDOT is supposed to be doing now. Yeah. We aren't going to be doing. This shouldn't be for maintenance projects that VDOT should be doing now. Right. So I think that maybe we bring VDOT in once we've decided where the projects are and what we want to do, and then get them working on getting it done. I agree with Ms. Page too that. This is county money that's being spent. It's not VDOT money. Mm-hmm. We obviously have to work with their rules on their roads, but when we decide to do something, I think it should be the county doing the project with their permission. I hate to even say that, but I think that VDOT can come into the plan later. Something maybe to think about, because we do want to make sure that the decisions are weighted on the need, not the district. Right. And maybe the two at large, do they have to be county residents? I mean, if we each have a member from our district, not to say that county residents can't be impartial, but it's something to think about is, if the at large are not necessarily required to be a county resident. I mean, because we do want some expertise that may not be in our area. We do want this money to be spent wisely and appropriately. So just a suggestion, something to think about.
Like an engineer or something.
Yeah, engineer, roads, retired, VDOT engineer or something along those lines that has a better understanding of not just the need, but the how, so.
The other thing to Mr. Ellen's question, I would think from your previous statement, I would think instead of having a board representative, that we would make sure we had a staff representative.
Well, that's what I think the next
Yeah.
board, the next
I-
item is. Somebody should have been first.
Yeah. So I think that I would think that.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna get to the
And,
next.
That resolves itself with the next item.
Well, yeah, I think
Absolutely.
so. That resolves itself with the next item.
Okay, that's all I know.
All right, we beat this thing up pretty good. It's almost gotta go to work.
So, Mr. Chairman, my question to you is, if we have to take action, are we taking action to have the resolution come back with changes?
I mean, it's a pleasure of the board. I just made the suggestion to add those 4 people as non-voting members.
Yeah, I think maybe we take a look at bringing, that we actually do the motion at the next meeting. That way we've, resolved the next issue, next item. Sorry. It might be better to do that because I think there is some question about whether or not we want to build this a little different. If I could, just procedurally, are we talking about eliminating the current road viewers and creating a new road viewers? So the appointments that are currently there, do they stay, or are we reappointing?
You can reappoint the same person, but you would have to make
An
a
appointment.
because the terms would be different if this charter is adopted.
So we would, once we create this, we'll be eliminating the other.
Yes.
Okay.
And I guess, Ms. Lockwood, what would hold it off? What would be the reason to not vote now? I mean,
Just to determine how we make up that body, with
Like
where do the
right.
at-large people
Like you
come
said.
from, and I mean,
But I
if
guess
you want to
if you-
make amendments to the motion, then
I mean, because at large is going to be. I mean, we can. Because you could point.
Like you said, to do like advisory to this board, so to put the sheriff and the fire department and all of them on there. We can say with the suggested changes, we could do that, or
Or-
Mr. Anthony can do the changes and bring it back as a complete document. Either one.
Well,
I'm just trying
What
to.
do y'all think?
That's one change that I heard was to add the Economic Development Director, Sheriff, and Fire Chief to the board. There's also the
Planning
question,
Director.
and Planning Director. There's also the question out there of at-large members. Do they have to reside in the county?
And I guess my question to that would be: do you think we could find somebody to come volunteer that's outside the county for this?
hard as ever get them into it.
But I'm saying they're going to be outlaw.
Well, it's like if we got somebody to volunteer to do it, then would it be for that know about roads? Would it be someone that if we wanted to do something with the roads that we had a contract out, would they be ineligible then to doing it?
How about the at-large is chosen if you nominate someone, they're not in your district?
I don't care because whatever
Yeah,
y'all
I
do
mean,
is my
it's
district.
at large.
So.
Or could you do away with the at large if you have that other advisory board? I mean, if you have that, the non-voting members, which you still you think it needed the at large?
I would add, though, there's no language in this charter that states the at-large member has to be from a specific district or within in the county. So I think you have that discretion.
Okay.
When you appoint that at-large member.
Well, that solves that one.
Yeah. Ms. Steers?
May I? Also, you might want to consider having school transportation in there. So that they have. Just a thought.
They know the roads. They're out there every day. They see a lot. So I think there's value in that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt Resolution R-16-21 to establish the charter for the New Kent County Board of Road Viewers with the noted changes.
Ms.
What?
Page, can I just clarify for your motion that the intention is to eliminate the current slate with the adoption of this, so you will have to appoint new members to this. The current members terms will automatically be eliminated with the approval of that. Is that the intention of the motion?
And Mr. Chairman, everything that the current attorney said.
Thank you.
So are we having the non-voting members as new motion, is what my question is.
Yes. Okay.
The five.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt resolution R-16-21 to establish a charter for the New Kent County Board of Road Viewers to include non-voting members, i.e. fire, sheriff, EDA, planning representative, school transportation, and with a clean slate of members to be appointed for the terms stated in this resolution.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Why did I do that?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye.
Thank you, Jesus.
All right, Mr. Hathaway, consideration of a request to create a transportation planning position.
Yes. What you have before you is a copy of a draft job description for the establishment of a new position, a transportation planner position that would be part of the planning department in answer to the planning director. This position would serve as staff support and would manage the Central Virginia Transportation Authority local funding process. They would serve as staff support to the Board of Road Viewers. They would attend the CVTA meetings, be involved in that process, involved with all the players, and basically manage our projects. A huge portion of this job, a huge part of this job, is project management. Along with that comes a lot of reporting. With the rules and regulations established so far by CVTA, there are annual reports and updates that are required to the authority. They want to know how we're spending money and want to ensure that we're spending it consistent with the state code and regulations of CVTA. This position would be responsible for that reporting and ultimately responsible for working with the Board of Road Viewers, developing that annual work program and presenting that work program to you for action. I'd be happy to answer any questions. This job description is a draft job description. If we do want to create this position, I will be getting with HR and our planning director. We'll be fine-tuning this and getting this out for advertisement.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Tiller?
could this position be funded through the CVTA funds?
Thank you. That's a very important part that I missed. I am proposing that this position be funded with Central Virginia Transportation Authority funding. So none of our local tax funds would go to support this.
And is that mandated by the state that we have to have this position?
No, it's not mandated. It's just we're going to need somebody managing this process, but it is not mandated that we have to have it.
I'm sorry, I thought that was the case.
Mr. Chairman, I have to tell you, Mr. Chairman, I'm a champion of this position, and the reason being, we have currently in our planning department managing funding through RSTP and CMAC and some of the many of the other applications for grants and transportation needs for the county. I'm not saying that it's overwhelming, but I'm saying that when I spoke with the board of CVTA, this position is a position that can be and is allowable to be funded through the CVTA. It is a position that will absolutely be a full-time position. Just keeping up with the multiple changes, just keeping up with the needs, working with VDOT and working with their smart scale application application criteria and guidelines. And also this person can come in and absolutely work with county administration and fire and the sheriff's department, and hopefully enhancing our smart scale application to get many road projects done throughout the county. And it is not funding that will have to come out of our from our general fund, but directly through CVTA. And so I did check on the legality of that, and it can be done that way. And it's going to be needed. I can assure the board of that.
Mr. Chairman? Yep, I agree with Ms. Page. I think that, the responsibilities for this position would be better handled by an individual dedicated to this position, as opposed to trying to divvy out the responsibilities with current staff. I'd like us to also, take a look at the candidates and leverage that position with someone that's capable of understanding the grant process, because this opens the door for not just the funding we have coming from Central Virginia Transportation Authority, but also there's a lot of federal and state grants that are out there that we probably are missing just because of time and knowledge. So, I think the right person in this role could bring more to the table than just the money we're going to get from Central Virginia Transportation Authority. And I think that, knowing what the grant process is like at that level, it's a time-consuming process. So I think that with the money that we're bringing in, the money that needs to be spent, that having someone dedicated to that position, it would be a wise choice.
Mr. Chairman. And I guess the question I started out with was, could it be funded with the CVTA funding? Can we also, if we hire this person, I guess a contract, I don't know if it's the right term when you hire, as long as there's CVTA money available?
We currently have grant-funded positions right now, and we do put language in there that stipulates this is grant-funded, and it's based on us receiving the grant, so yes.
Because, to me, if that funding goes away, we probably aren't going to need that person any longer anyway.
Right. True. Yeah.
I know some of the jobs they still got that.
Well,
Yeah, may I throw out, Mr. Chairman, is an alternative to a transportation planner is to have maybe a 3-panel group volunteer their time to do this work. And the reason I'm saying that is, you just create more big government, more positions that the taxpayers are going to have to pay for. Somewhere down the road, we have to pay for. This starts out at about $75,000 a year, and then in the 2 years after that, he's going to need an assistant. Then you're going to have, and it just grows and grows and grows. And that's $100,000 you could take that you could be spending on projects that we need done in the county. I'm just throwing that out as an option, and I don't know.
I would say to that, we already created a board that's going to advise, 5 districts, 2 at large. So we already have a committee that's going to be putting things together in that sense. I don't think we need to have another committee with a committee. And I think this gives us the best opportunity to find someone that is specialized in this area, as opposed to creating just another committee that advises. I think we need somebody that's going to be in there as a decision maker and kind of weighing the projects that are advised by those committees. So I would just respectfully disagree, Mr. Steers. I think that this is a position, it is indirectly taxpayer funded, but it is not New Kent only taxpayer funded. So I think utilizing the Transportation Authority funding to staff this position is a good use of that money.
And Just like to add, we're not reinventing the wheel with this position. I mean, and I say that because a lot of the localities surrounding us now, albeit they're a little larger than us, but they already have this position in place. In fact, some of the localities have entire transportation departments, planning departments. I don't think we need to go to that level. I think one person will do. But in drafting this job description, we did review a lot of the existing position job descriptions that are already in place.
Ms. Page?
Excuse me.
Still, Steers.
And the person filling the position, would they be required to live in the county?
You can stipulate that requirement if you choose. My caution is we don't require that for any other position other than myself, which at one point I was legally required to live in the county. I think those laws have changed a couple years ago.
I'll have to check on that. But it doesn't matter. Rodney lives in the county.
Yes, I do. And don't plan on moving. Right. But I mean, that is a stipulation you can make if you choose.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other discussion.
I'd just like to add one thing. I do like Mr. Tiller's idea of tying it to the grant funding. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the county administrator to create a transportation planner position at a level 20 pay grade with language including that it is a contracted or granted position.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Any discussion? Ms. Watkins, poll the members, please.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Other business, Mr. Hathaway?
I do have one item. Do have one item. We have very recently, and we being the county, has very recently been approached with an opportunity from the Nature Land Conservancy. The Nature Land Conservancy is I was going to say national, but really it's a worldwide organization that manages conservation easements and preserves. Here in New Kent, one of the conservation easements that they own and manage is the Vandal Preserve at Cumberland Marsh. This is a 1,100 acre, almost 1,200 acre preserve that's in a conservation easement that features a boardwalk and observation platform on the Palmonkey River, the marshes of the Palmonkey River, and also a hiking trail. The second page shows a map of the preserve. As you can see, it's a pretty extensive piece of property. The picture on the left-hand side with the star shows the location of the boardwalk and observation deck, which I'll focus on the opportunity that we've recently been approached with. If you go to the next page, is a picture of the observation deck and boardwalk, and the Nature Conservancy has approached us and has expressed a willingness to partner with the county to allow the construction of a kayak launch to provide public access to the Palmonkey River. As you are aware, and as we all know, we are surrounded by 3 rivers, and we have no public access to any of those rivers. which is a goal in our strategic plan, is to increase public access within the three rivers. If you go to, and what we're looking at, that kayak launch replacing the observation deck and boardwalk. As you can see from the picture, it is pretty aged. It's in need of some maintenance. And we believe just replacing it would be the best option. We also have another issue with this structure if we were to use it as a kayak launch. If you go to the next page, you'll see a picture of this area during low tide. You probably have to go another 30 to 40 feet out to actually get to the water during low tide. It's an extensive march. Flipping to the next page is kind of an idea of what we have in mind. As you can see, it is a long ramp structure, long deck with an observation area, and at the end of the deck would be a platform for a kayak launch. In the last page is our request. Staff, I request authorization to proceed with engineering and design, utilizing one of our current on-call engineering firms to enable the county to develop a cost estimate so that you'll have some numbers to consider when making a decision of whether or not to move forward with the construction of a kayak launch. At this point, I'm only asking to proceed with engineering and design so we can put together some numbers. I recommend to fund this that we utilize existing funds that have been proffered by the Farms of New Kent, dedicated for conservation easements. The current balance of the funding is $108,960. We won't need anywhere near that for engineering, but I'm hoping these funds could also assist with the construction if we determine that the project is financially feasible to move forward.
Anybody have any comments?
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this the corking fee that was set up originally?
That is.
Fee? Okay.
Yes, that's the 25 cents per wine bottle. So, yes.
Mr. Lockwood?
Would this, basically you're going to replace the current structure, so it would be in the same location, just extended further out?
If the engineering supports that. And, once we get an engineer out there, they may want to shift it a little bit, but it will replace that.
General
structure.
location the same?
Yes.
Has anybody really looked to see if any of the underlying structure is reusable, or are we talking about a total replacement of this?
We've not looked at the underlying structure, but we've had conversations with the Nature Land Conservancy, and they believe we're probably going to need
total
to replace
replacement.
That.
Okay. Was this Larry's idea? No.
Larry's idea.
Whose?
We've had several meetings, and Larry has been a huge part of this. And he's organized meetings with the Nature Land Conservancy, and he has been the driver for this project. And
Good.
I thank him for that, because I do think this is a good project.
And it is on, in our strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
All of our marketing and everything points to the water, so it's kind of crazy for us to keep pointing to it and you can't get to it. So I think that certainly looking into the feasibility and cost of a program like this and allowing people access to the water is a good thing. So
Will,
Ms. Stu?
Your own risk type of, once we do the landing, is it like other boat landings and all that? Is your own, what's there?
Well, we're definitely going to look at the impacts on our insurance, but there are other public kayak launches, usually with signage, liability signage, which we will have a ton of.
Okay.
I don't see that as being a barrier to doing this.
would the county own the property? The pier?
The county would not own the pier, but they would want us to agree to maintain the pier once
And is
constructed.
it restricted only to kayaks?
Well, because of the structure that I've showed that's in this, it pretty much limits it to kayaks. You might be able to get a John boat.
Or canoes?
Small, oh yes, definitely canoes, definitely.
Yeah, because the nature of the conservancy is that they don't allow mechanized vehicles, so you wouldn't be allowed to haul your motorboat out there. Yeah.
I know that I saw this in Matthews. They built one a few years ago, I think, down in town. Do you think you really need an engineer, or could you just put out an RFP for this? I mean, it's nothing. It's not rocket science.
We wanted to, before we put an RFP for construction, I guess.
Could we do a design build RFP though? I mean,
we could do a design build. The thing is, I just wanted to get some numbers before we said yes, do this.
Because I know that one in Matthews was way more than
Oh, okay.
As my understanding.
As far as size and okay.
No, it costs more.
He's talking dollars.
Oh, okay.
The one right there in town, right by the fire station. Bruce Howard built that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could just put out a construction bid to see what prices we get back.
At the end of the day, that's what's going to matter anyway.
I mean, it kind of boils down. Let them do the engineering with their bid,
Design build.
I mean, kind of tell them what you want.
I mean, it's just, like you said, it's not rocket science. I mean, it is building a deck at a location that already exists. Obviously, you're going to have to remove the one that's there if, that's determined to be the case. I'd say let somebody else do the engineering. Let them include that in their bid. That'll tell us what it's really going to cost.
Okay.
You think?
Real quick, one of the things that we're looking at as well with the engineering is to have a plan. BCR has grants, 80-20 matches that we were looking at going for next year, which having plans in place, what the cost would be would allow us to apply for those funds. We may not be awarded, but it is a cost savings if we were to do it.
What are you projecting engineering cost?
I really don't know. Take a look at parking. We got to increase parking a little bit, and then tear out, and then redo. It should be a little bit less than a brand new one because the pier's already there. But
If they have tear it out, it's going to be more. It might be more.
well, I mean, as far as permitting goes from the maintenance side,
Right.
brand new construction.
What parking is just gravel, right?
Gravel.
I don't know how many. I've never seen too many engineered gravel parking lots.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, if somebody's going to submit a plan and a bid, wouldn't their engineering be a part of that? So from a grant process, we'd have the engineering to go forward. We'd have a price, and we'd have a price for an actual person to build it out. I guess we would, if we're going to go after grant money, can we do that after the fact? Can we already have hired and submit for a grant that's a project that's underway, or does it have to be a proposed project in order to apply for the grant?
I think it's going to be timing, because once we let a contract, if we get to that point, there's permitting that has to be in place, and while that permitting and engineering is being done, if the grant schedules align itself, then we could be applying for that grant at the same time before we get to the construction phase, because permitting is going to be a big part of that. This may have to go before the Wetlands Board, which is going to take a little time too. So we'll work on the schedule for that.
I think I'd like to see us put it out to bid with the engineering as part of the proposal.
Yep. If the estimated cost is under $200,000, the state code allows you to do that as a construction project just by using your small purchase procedure. I don't know whether you think the total cost would be under $200,000. That's one way you wouldn't have to do a formal solicitation. You could just get different quotes if you're small.
I would just need some action from the board to do that, because our county purchasing policy requires everything over $50,000 to go out for a formal bid. We're a little more stricter than the state code, but if the board agrees to allow us to.
How about, can you all come back with us at the next meeting, go out and do a little, see what that one costs in Matthews and kind of do a little homework on it?
Yeah.
And then we'll have a little better idea if they did engineering, and just give us a little bit more time before. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I don't see it, but that will give us an idea of which way we need to move forward. Board's okay with that?
We'll check with Matthews. We'll also check. There's kind of a project that's already taken place that we've kind of modeled this after too, called Crow's Nest. I think that's, what county is that? Stafford County too. So we'll reach out to them too, and Matthews. Crow's Nest is very similar as far as topography and length to get to the water. So yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, because I really think, the only thing I guess, when you do have those engineers plans, you can have it, you get different bids. You don't want to have, you want to have some 6x6s in there. You don't want to have 4x4s. You want something that's going to last. Mm-hmm. So we kind of need to make sure.
Okay.
All right, any other business?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hathaway, we had some discussion about projects for the Central Virginia Transportation Authority money that we had already submitted on our list. We were going to discuss some of those. Are we going to reschedule that? Or are we, because I know we've got some stuff that we could already be looking at and try to get the ball moving forward on some of them.
About 4 months, it might be a little bit longer than that.
Might not.
Plan RVA requested, and it's probably more like 8 months. Plan RVA requested a list of potential projects from all the localities. And we did develop, working with planning, developed a list. We can definitely spend some time with that list. It's been a while since we've submitted that, and actually, Plan RVA is not going to hold us to that list, so we're not bound by that. I'm not even sure why they requested it, to be honest with you, but they did, and we gave it to them. If we want to set some time together to discuss some potential projects, we can definitely do that. I know that there's some drainage issues in Eltham. There's a stop sign and a stoplight in Bottoms Bridge that we're trying to find money for. Intersection improvements at 155 South Courthouse, South Quaker Road to serve the new elementary school. There's a ton of projects. This board of road views is going to be busy kind of wading through those needs.
So are you saying we should be waiting for them to review those projects, or are there projects that we can move forward with now?
I can tell you that the projects that were submitted, they're getting ready to ask the county to submit other projects. They're getting ready for a new list. It was a part of the formation, so they had to have a list according to how they were governed, and so they had to have a list of the beginning projects. They're getting ready to open up now for new projects to come forward, because even when they asked for the list, they gave us like 2 or 3 weeks to put the list together. Right. I think they gave you to do that, and they knew that those projects would change. So I think I have a meeting next week. I can get that list. I can get it before that. But as a body, that list was not just for New Kent County to look at, but what funding would come from the full CVTA. So that's not just New Kent funding come out. That's right. For the 50%,
I'm thinking
the 35%.
I'm thinking more specifically about the projects that we were looking at from the county with the county funds from the authority.
I think that we just talked about the road viewers, and one of the comments that came up was, so when do we decide the projects? And I think that maybe that's, I don't want to say fairness, but maybe that's a good project for them to start with. I don't know.
Because I think, a lot of us, not just in our own district, but in the county as a whole, there's a lot of little things that we've been asking VDOT to do for us that were turned down for whatever reason, that, it's an opportunity for us to also kind of bang out a bunch of stupid things that haven't been done that we'd like to get done, and utilize those funds without spending a great deal of money, be able to knock out a lot. I'm thinking just some signage issues that we've brought up that VDOT determined we didn't need. Just there's a lot of things that we can do, that seem almost petty, but we almost don't need their permission. They just didn't want to pay for it. So just a thought, if there's some signage issues or other things like that, that now is a good time for us to take a look at them, where we don't need to ask permission. We just need to kind of do it ourselves. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this publicly, but to me, a lot of what we want to do, we should be in a position to just do it. This whole asking permission thing is getting on my nerves. I know, but I think that, we're putting up the money. We're going to do the engineering. We're going to play by the rules. But when the time comes for us to put a project forward, it ain't going to happen, but I'm expecting a rubber stamp from VDOT, because they don't have any real say in it. If we build the road to their standard, if we put up the right signage to their standard, then it should be this is what New Kent County wants in our county, and this is what we're going to fund. So I think it's a just get it done kind of situation. But yeah, okay. There's my 2 cents.
Mr. Chairman, and what Mr. Lockwood just said, if it's our money and they're allowing us to do this, maybe we can get some flexibility on speed limits to go along with this if we're funding.
Good luck.
Some of these.
Mr. Tiller, I would say just don't get me started. We'll come back to that later.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's VDOT warrants. I mean, we had a situation in Bottoms Bridge where we had a proffer that was ready to pay for a stoplight. It would have cost nobody anything, but VDOT would not allow it because the warrants were not met.
That proffer would have been 2 years longer.
Yeah.
It would have been, or even a year longer.
Yeah.
Because that 10 years ran out.
It's
well, that's what I'm talking about, and then ultimately they come back and now say we need a stoplight there. Yeah. So, this playing catch up later after the money's gone is ridiculous. So,
but one more thing with the stoplight in Bottoms Bridge, they finally said it when one was warranted there at, in front of the food line at Marketplace Drive. Mm-hmm. If we decided to put a light there now, they're doing a new study from the Henrico County line all the way down to 106 to look at future development to find out if another light might be necessary. So we could go to them now and say we want to put a light up there, and they might go, no, I think the light needs to be here, or an additional light. So I don't know that we can. Some of those projects, I don't know that we can just jump on because, and they're doing a study on 249 too.
Yeah, I agree with Bottoms Bridge. We should definitely wait until that corridor study is done, because like you said, they may determine that Marketplace is not the best location for a light. But if you guys would like, I can send you the list that was sent to Plan RVA. We can work from there, and then
I think you probably need to wait till you get this director on, or hire this planning transportation person. My opinion. before we start. All right, I think we're beating this up. No other business. Mr. Steers, you got a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move to go into closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3711A.5 of the Code of Virginia for discussion concerning two prospective businesses where no previous announcement has been made of the business's interest in locating its facilities in the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steers. Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page? And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye, and I'll just make that, no business going to be taken care of after this closed session. So the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, August 9th, and the next work session at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. Both in the boardroom of the County Administration Building, and there will be no August work session. Before we go into closed session, though, Mr. Tiller and I had a meeting yesterday with planning, chair and vice chair, and we want to have a joint meeting with the planning commission August, where'd Kelly go? August, what was the 9th? 20th. When's your planning commission meeting? Your planning commission meeting is? The next one? Well, the one that we're going to come to. We're trying. The 20th. September 20th. We're going to hear. Yeah, September 20th. They're going to meet with, if we can all meet that day, they want to kind of give us an update. We talked about the comp plan, so we're all kind of on the same board, same page when that project takes off. So does that date work for 6:30, the 20th of September?
I got to check. But anyway, yeah.
We can let Mr. Hathaway know. All right, we'll go into closed session.